When Solo Sikoa beat Rey Fenix to qualify for the 2025 Money in the Bank ladder match, a lot of people were upset. Not just about how the WWE treats luchadors or how the Samoan mind control has infected the booking department, but also with the fact that the Money in the Bank ladder match is now missing one of the flashiest and most dynamic presences with a proven history in ladder matches for those who have seen him. You combine this with the, I'd say much less unpopular, but still controversial decision to have Alexa Bliss beat Mi Chin and Chelsea Green, two proven wrestlers in a hardcore environment, and the WWE has made clear that having wrestlers who will excel in a ladder match is not important for them to include in their annual ladder match. Of all the petty discourses in wrestling, I think that this one is actually kind of interesting. Should the Money in the Bank ladder match, or any match for that matter, actually be good? Let's talk about it. The question of does wrestling matter in wrestling is probably the most done to death and boring topics because the answer to that question is very clearly dependent on what you're interested in, which is also probably what you enjoyed when you were 13. If you saw WWE when you were young and you grew a fondness for it, and a bunch of dweebs online say, that's not real wrestling, that's a shitty soap opera, now watch these two stiffs kick each other, you're probably going to come away with the idea that wrestling doesn't matter because it's about the story and the characters, and vice versa. If you clicked on this video hoping for a rehash of that garbage topic, or if you know me and were dreading that I would get sucked into this garbage topic, sorry, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. What I think is interesting about this subject, though, is that the way that matches are constructed does tie into this weird discourse. Because ultimately, the question is asking what it is that gets you invested in wrestling. Is it the story coming in, or is it the physical matching of wits? Without investment, wrestling doesn't exist as a spectator sport. But the ways that you can get someone invested does tend to vary pretty widely. For me personally, booking a story that makes these characters interesting will pretty much supersede anything because at that point, anything physical is enhanced by my interest. That isn't to say that I don't care about wrestling, but I guess that I don't really care about wrestling with no context. I've never really liked the idea of dream matches that are obtained on a regular basis because I think that having the dream is often more important than actually seeing the match, where it can almost never live up to what you had envisioned. But there are also times in the past where I've remembered being way more excited about Shane Taylor and Kenny King being in the same match because of stories that happened between them than I was for CM Punk's first match in years. To me, I think that booking is fascinating, and the internal wrestling stories and how matchups get made and explained are what makes the physical moves click, which is why I've never had a spreadsheet or given star ratings. It's just not how I personally have enjoyed wrestling, which is why I think that the discourse around Money in the Bank is so interesting. The question at the core of what makes this discourse interesting is, what do you want from the Money in the Bank ladder match? 6 people who can all win the match with clear stories on how they will use the briefcase, or one winner with 5 other wrestlers who are great ladder match wrestlers to do spots and make the match an engaging one. Now, the obvious answer for all you dumb little jerks out there is that those should be the same thing. You should have good wrestlers also having stories. Yeah, whatever. Thanks for taking the air out of the room. But let's assume that it actually is that polarizing. Which of these two options is the more engaging result? Because I think that the nature of Money in the Bank makes it an interesting question. Off the top of your head, just snap decision. What is your favorite Money in the Bank ladder match? Not your favorite winner, not your favorite event, your favorite Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't think that very many people have one. Now, once again, off the top of your head, just snap decision. What is your favorite Money in the Bank cash in? Oh my god, there's so many. You're spoiled for choice. Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Dolph Ziggler, Dean Ambrose, Liv Morgan, Carmella. Remember when RVD cashed in the briefcase to call his shot for a specific event that gives him an advantage? That was a really creative idea that's never been used again. Money in the Bank is a strange match because the match itself has so little to do with the outcome. The match could be incredible, but when someone wins, the entire focus is on them and their cash-in potential and their storylines. Conversely, the match could be slow and plotting and bad, but if the right person wins, you're going to be looking at the booking all the same. So what does the match having good ladder match wrestlers actually matter? On my video about Backlash, I received a comment from someone who was there live talking about being disappointed by the card being 5 matches and that the first time he saw Gunther, it was in a match with Pat McAfee. And I think that this is a valid complaint. Maybe not the 5-match card thing, that's been the norm for years now, but the Gunther match, sure. I think that's fair, and it's not up to me to tell you that how you feel is invalid. But this comment got me thinking about this question even more. Are the fans who buy a ticket owed a great match? Does that come with the price of admission? The company is obviously incentivized to have great matches, but does that mean that the company also needs to build their shows around wrestlers who are going to mesh with their concept well, even if they don't line up as a potential winner? In a theoretical world, fans don't buy tickets without seeing who's advertised, and you let the matches booked dictate how you spend your money. Thus, your dollar equates to a vote. But in a practical world, I don't really know what the answer to that question is, and anything else is a much bigger conversation than this video. All of this said, with my preferences in mind, I think that there is something to be said about the Money in the Bank match specifically when it comes to match wrestlers, which is a term that I'm using for, I guess, Rey Fenix and Chelsea Green. Well, I think that someone like Solo Sikoa has more interesting ideas for stories than Rey Fenix does with the briefcase. Money in the Bank does exist as a theoretical elevation tool, where someone like Damian Priest can go from number 2 in a mid-card heel faction to a credible and protected upper-card solo act. That alone means that even though someone like Rey Fenix likely won't win, the opportunity for him to win is so much more tangibly valuable than it is in a Royal Rumble or Elimination Chamber. Because while those are often rewards for the top 1%, I'd say that Money in the Bank getting won by a main eventer always feels a little gross. It's such a tangible feeling when you're watching the match too. Like, you're seeing a potential world champion literally climbing the ladder to snatch the metaphysical brass ring that will bring them to the next level. What brought me to my eventual conclusion stems from my original question in response to the prompt. I asked what your favorite Money in the Bank ladder match was and what your favorite cash-ins were, highlighting that the booking aspect of the Money in the Bank supersedes the actual match portion. But then I had to ask myself, what is the best spot in a Money in the Bank match? Who was the one doing it? My favorite spot in a Money in the Bank ladder match is Jeff Hardy jumping onto Edge at WrestleMania 23. Because that's the one I saw when I was 13, and also because it loops in like 10 years of history between the Hardys, Edge, and WrestleMania. Was Jeff Hardy a serious contender to win the match? I don't know. Shelton Benjamin wasn't, John Morrison wasn't, Zoe Stark and Io Sky weren't in 2024 either. Big Show got a personal big ladder and still wasn't a serious threat to win. All the spots that get done that make this match at all memorable as a match are being done by the no-hopers. It's what makes the match a viable spectacle live event and not just a skippable cutscene. And in that same vein, part of the hype of the match are the teases of the underappreciated mid-carder winning the briefcase because it means that they'll get theirs and shake up the company. The Money in the Bank ladder match is an awesome match because it does wrestling theory perfectly. It's a captivating live event, you're going to get big spots where people can make a name for themselves in one of WWE's premier matches, and the booking repercussions are much more variable than a Royal Rumble, which almost always culminates at WrestleMania. I guess my conclusion is that while I do like the Solo involvement at Money in the Bank because I think that him as a potential winner is good, I wouldn't do it at the expense of Rey Fenix or any other match wrestlers, which you can do because you control who wins and who loses. I think that you do need match wrestlers, even from a booking perspective, to make the match work than you do a field of 6 winners. Because part of what makes Money in the Bank interesting is the idea that a Rey Fenix can take the briefcase and become world champion. And not just that there are pre-baked stories to use the guaranteed title shot with. If I book the match, I do have Solo win, and I have him cash in on Jacob Fatu for their continued story. But I don't think I do that at the expense of a good match. So, you know what? Give a point to the haters on this one, but only if they can acknowledge everything I said here. Because it's not as easy as real graps are the way. It just isn't.